Good morning, AP Psychology students. Welcome to Psychology Experience, the #1 psychology show in America. Today we will be reviewing the history and methodology of psychology. Let's get right into it, beginning with the founders of psychology.
Who is the father of psychology and what did he study?
Wundt and introspection and structuralism.
Ding, ding, ding. You are correct, but who was the student of Wundt?
Titchener.
Wow, you really know your history. Have you heard of that place, Harvard? It is home to the first psychology lab in America.
Oh wow, who did that?
William James. An easy way to remember this is that he has two common American names that make up his first and last name. Here's a bonus. Who studied under James?
Mary Whitten Calkins.
You are correct. Okay, we're moving on. What was the difference between Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow?
I'm not sure. Aren't they both the same?
While they both funded and drove humanistic approaches, their theories differed in that Rogers believed all people were capable of and should move towards self-actualization, whereas Maslow suggested only a few individuals actually were able to achieve their full potential. If you're a Marvel fan, an easy way to remember this is that Captain America's name is Steve Rogers. He believes everyone should be able to achieve their full potential, just like Carl Rogers. Remember Rogers.
Remember, think of Carl Rogers like Steve Rogers. Both of them believe that all people can live up to their full potential, also known as their self-actualization.
Now, do you know what the APA is?
The AP what?
The APA, it's an American Psychology Association. It was created by G. Stanley Hall. It has advanced over the years to offer precise educational psychological information. Fun fact, he also wrote the first psychology journal known as the American Journal of Psychology. The journal explores the in-depth science of the body's mind and behavior.
Let's do a quick review on the founders of psychology. First off is Wilhelm Wundt. Remember, he's the father of psychology. You can remember this by the phrase, "Wouldn't you like to be my father?" Make sure to remember Edward B. Titchener, who was the student of Wundt. You can remember this by thinking that Wundt ends with a T and Titchener starts with a T. Next is William James, who started the first psychology lab in America, and he attended Harvard. You can remember William James because his name is made up of two common first names in America. Next, we have G. Stanley Hall, who founded the APA, the American Psychology Association. He also wrote the first psychology journal known as the American Journal of Psychology.
Does anybody know the 5 perspectives of psychology?
Wait, I know this. It's right on the tip of my tongue.
The tip of the tongue phenomenon, but that's a lesson for another day. First is a psychodynamic perspective. Freud was the most influential in this perspective. He emphasized unconscious processes such as fears or wishes. For an example, a childhood trauma that caused fear in the rain may trigger acrophobia in an adult.
Oh wow, that probably explains my fear of the dark.
Yep, there's also the cognitive perspective, which deals with processing memory and perception. A good way to remember this is pointing towards your head with your index finger to demonstrate what you're thinking. Next is the behavioral perspective, which states that behavior is learned through interaction with the environment. You can remember this by sticking your middle finger out to display a daring action. Don't try it at home, as it may come off offensive. Then we have our humanistic approach, which focuses on the importance of human value and dignity. Try to lift up your ring finger without moving any of your other fingers. You can't. Use your other fingers to help push your ring finger. You got it.
Lastly is the biological perspective. This looks into the evolutionary growth an individual goes throughout their lifetime. Remember this through the Pinky and the Brain song, as behavior essentially comes down to your chemical brain impulses. Everything psychological is physiological. Oh, and we can't forget about the eclectic perspective. It draws on all the theories. This is super essential. Get it? Because eclectic is essential and the different perspectives are essential in human development? Okay, you get it.
Let's do a quick review on the perspectives of psychology. Remember, the pointer finger goes with the cognitive perspective because you use your pointer finger when you're thinking. Next is the middle finger for the behavioral perspective. This is because sticking up your middle finger is a learned behavior that represents an offensive gesture. Next is your ring finger, which is the humanistic approach. This has two reasons. The first reason is because you wear your ring finger on this finger for love and belonging. The other reason is that you can't lift your ring finger without the help of your other fingers. Therefore, it needs help living up to its full potential. Next is the pinky finger, which is for the biological perspective. You can remember this by the song The Pinky and the Brain. Next is the thumb, which goes with the psychodynamic perspective. You can remember this by putting your thumb over your shoulder because it involves things that are in your past. And finally, we can't forget about the entire hand as a whole. This is the eclectic perspective. This is because in order to pick something up, for example, a pencil, you have to use your entire hand to help you.
Bonus, name one defense mechanism associated with the psychodynamic perspective.
Sublimation. Sublimation is when you take unacceptable drives into acceptable ones. This one is perfect for all the football players who have a lot of rage.
You got it. Say you suffered from a terrible incident as a child and unconsciously stamped out the event. Now you're unaware of this tragedy. What is this an example of?
Suppression?
It's actually an example of repression. These two can be easily mistaken, but remember that repression is unconscious blocking while suppression is voluntary. You can remember this by associating suppression to a stop sign. You're voluntarily stopping to prevent accidents from occurring in the same way you're stopping unwanted thoughts from incidents happening.
Remember the difference between suppression and repression. Suppression is voluntary blocking, while repression is unconscious blocking. Think of a stop sign. You voluntarily stop at a stop sign, just like you voluntarily block things when you're doing suppression.
A woman named Susie, who just went through a divorce, channels her emotions into daily movement such as yoga. What is this an example of?
Sublimation?
Yes, you got it. Can you explain the scientific process?
Sure. It's a theory that other scientists test out to check that it's valid information.
Not quite. A theory is actually a carefully thought out explanation that's been developed through the scientific method itself. It's the facts that are widely accepted. The word you're looking for is hypothesis. It's an idea you can test. Make sure it's clear and focused. Who knows, it might become a theory. There are different ways in which a person can experiment. For example, a scientist can direct subjects in a study. After obtaining the needed statistical analysis and data, you can report your findings and publish reports so that your fellow peers can replicate it to get the same results.
Wow, what a power lesson.
Speaking of studies, on to the case studies. Case studies are extensive studies of your life. These actually help suggest or generate theories and ideas for a testable hypothesis. It helps us understand the why. In fact, you can choose people through random assignments for unbiased, better results.
Interesting. So what about if you're researching a correlation between two things like marriage and divorce? Can you see that most marriages are linked to divorces?
Good question. Sir Galton actually came up with the correlation studies. While you can associate the two researches, correlation does not equal causation. Therefore, it wouldn't always mean marriages end in divorces. Lastly, we can use descriptive data such as mean, median, and mode to distribute our research findings throughout the normal bell curve. Remember the 68, 95, 99 rule. It'll help us with the different values that lie within a normal distribution curve. These percentages will fall in different standard deviations to represent where the population lies.
Let's quickly review the types of descriptive data they are. First, there's the mean. The mean is the average, which is found by adding up all the values in a data set and dividing them by the number of values. The median is the middle number found in the data set when lined up from least to greatest values. Then the mode is the most frequently seen value in the data set. We can't forget about the normal bell curve, which allows us to see the distribution of the data. And we can't forget the 68, 95, 99 rule, which allows us to see which values in the data set fall within the average and which ones are extreme values.
Wow, I'm gonna pass this AP exam. Thanks for the refresher. Anytime.
Alright, so now a quick little game. I'm going to say a word and you say whatever comes to mind first, okay?
Okay.
Egg.
Nasty.
Night.
Scary.
Day.
Long.
Life.
Exhausted.
My God, you don't understand how to play this game.
Thank you for watching. We will see you next week on Psychology Experience. Remember to stay psyched.